introduce this growth functions concept. Okay, yeah, all right. We use our part A example, formula between running time and the number of basic operations. So here, I like to introduce the concept first. Then we apply this concept in our previous example. Okay, yeah. So the concept is we want to look at a formula between running time. Running time function, yeah, there is a function to calculate the running time. And there is another function, that's the number of basic operations, two different functions. And we want to look at the relationship between those two functions. Yeah, here. Notations. Yeah. Function of the running time, capital T of n. Yeah. Suppose, given a problem with data size n, we have some algorithm, we just clock it. We clock its response time, and the value, we use this function, capital T of n, to represent the running time function. Okay, yeah. Then we use another function that gives us the number of basic operations used. Basic operation for different problems could be different. Could be addition, could be multiplication, and it could be comparisons. Yeah. For this class, most of the time we use comparisons. Yeah. All right, yeah. So the operation, yeah, here, yeah, you may wonder, how do you define basic operations, right? We have additions, we have multiplication, we have two different operations. In that polynomial evaluation problem, multiplication is the basic operation. Addition is not, because multiplication has this property. The operation contributing the most to the total running time. Multiplication, that's the big part. Addition, very little, small portion. Dominant. Multiplication dominates addition. So we make that kind of operation basic operation. All right. Execution time of a basic operation. So here we also need a quantity, one constant now. Oh, question.
Yeah, about basic operations. So if you didn't have multiplication in the function, would addition become the basic operation, or it's?
We need to, yeah, so here the question, we need to look at all the operations and we want to see which one contributes the most to the running time. Okay, yeah. So yeah, actually, so in your code, in your algorithm, you have algorithm first. In your algorithm, you look at for loop. Usually, you look at the for loop.
Yeah.
For example, you have nested for loops.
Yeah.
Outer for loop, inner for loop. The operation that appears in the inner for loop, that one contribute more.
Okay.
Outer, because you do not get into the inner. When you get a nested for loop, you will apply that operation much more.
So
yeah.
With that being said, addition could be the
could
basic
be.
operation?
Definitely, could be.
Okay.
Yeah, could be. All right. Yeah. In order to compare these two functions, so we need to use another quantity, little c up. It's a constant. It's constant. That's the execution time for one basic operation. But for different machines, this constant could be different. Usually it's different. But here we just assume there is one constant for one particular machine. Okay, yeah. So then we can compare these two functions. but we take approximation approach. They may not be exactly the same, approximately equal. So TON is approximately equal to C of times capital C of N function. Yep. A straightforward relationship. This is a constant, machine-dependent constant. If you change the machine, this constant will be different, machine-dependent constant. Okay, yeah, all right. Well, you can see these two functions are proportional. The relationship, proportional. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. And we know from previous classes, we know if we use the C function to measure the efficiency, it's more stable than T function, right? T function for different machines, so you have a problem. But for C function, for different machines, you have the same C function. Okay, more stable. Number of basic operations, the same. All right. So then we want to see what details we can ignore in our study, in our algorithm efficiency study. What kind of details we can ignore? Okay, yeah, so we want to consider that. Can we ignore some constants? In our formula expressions, we may have a lot of constants. Okay, if we carry all the constants, we can make our formulas relatively complicated. So we want to simplify our formulas. How do we simplify our formulas? Ignore some unnecessary or not important constants, that are not very important, that we can ignore. So here, let's look at this question. Can we ignore some minor terms? So here, let's do this ratio. Take the ratio, T of 2n over T of n. Look at this ratio. Because this ratio can tell us how fast this function increases. Every time you double the problem size, what is that ratio? Okay? If you have that number, so you have an idea how fast it increases. Every time you double the problem size. Okay? And for that ratio, when you use this approximation formula, this constant can be canceled out, equals this C function ratio, C of 2n over C of n. Same ratio. When you switch from T version to C version, this ratio, same. Ratio the same. And you know this ratio can give us information how fast the function increases. So you can get that, but so that tells us this constant is not that important. This little c constant, because we cancel out. Without that constant, we can also see how fast the function increases using the ratio. Okay, this kind of ratio. Yeah. That means this constant can be ignored if we want to see how fast, if we want to get an idea how fast that efficiency function. We use the function to represent efficiency, that efficiency function. That constant not important. Yeah. All right, so that's one observation from this equation. Yeah. Yeah, so whenever we double the input, what is that ratio? If the ratio number is high, then the increasing rate is high. Okay. All right. All right. So then, now we want to define this growth function concept. Growth function. All right. What is the major term in an efficiency function? Major term. We have many terms. Major, minor, the major terms. I need to control the time. Yeah, because that clock, that direction is not good. Hard for me to see it, so I need to use my cell phone. See the time. All right. Major term, minor terms, we to see that. Yeah, and last time we saw this concept, dominant term. Dominant term. Okay, one term, leading term. There is one term. Value is much higher than those of all other terms. Yeah. So let's record the selection sort. In the selection sort, this is the efficiency function number of comparisons. C of n, this is our C of n. Okay, yeah. Let's expand that function. We have two terms. Okay, two terms. Can we say the first term dominates the second term in its value? We look at the value, dominates. Okay, yeah. So it's the major term, the minor. Okay. Here, because after we identify major terms, minor terms, we can ignore all the minor terms. So we want to simplify. We only keep the dominant term. Okay. Yeah. Because if you look at the percentage, the percentage of the dominant term could be much higher than 99-something%, right? If you look at the percentage, when n is sufficiently large, the percent of the first term much higher than 99-something%. So that's the reason you can ignore that minor term. Because less than 0 point many zeros 1%. The n is large. Because we only worry about large n. Think about it. The last time I said we only work in our algorithm efficiency study. We only worry about large n, very large n. For relatively small n, we don't worry about it. Okay? Our computer is very fast. But for large n, it could be very slow. All right. So that's what. So the first term dominates all other remaining terms, so we can ignore those minor terms. Yeah. So you do not lose much. Okay. Yeah. Right. So that's the first concept, dominant term concept. Okay. All right. Then we move from dominant term to that growth function. Another step. There is another step. We try to simplify it. Okay? Because here there is a 1/2 constant here. Okay? 1/2 constant here. In our dominant term, we cannot ignore that 1/2 constant term. This dominant term. Right? But when we move to the growth function, we don't need that constant. We can simplify furthermore. For the growth function, why we need this constant? Remember in the previous slide, that little c of constant cancel out. It's not important. That constant. When we look at the ratio, it's not important. Here, if we do ratio, double the size over that constant is gone. Okay? Yeah. So when we consider the growth function, we can simplify this dominant term another step. Okay? Ignore that one, constant 1/2. Only keep the n squared, because that's the most important one. That's our growth function. The growth function definition is that. Okay? So, all right, so here, yeah. But here I just want to explain why the first term dominates the second one. Okay, using the limit way. Calculus. In calculus, you know how to calculate the limit. Here, why I explain why the first term dominates the second one. We take the ratio, first term, second term ratio, when n goes to infinity. Let's find the limit. After simplification, this limit is infinity. Infinity, so you compare percentage, the first one, infinity, can be very close to 1. The percentage very close to 100%, right? A little smaller than 100, but very close to 100%. So you can comfortably ignore that minor term. Percentage is too small, okay? All right, so this formula, we just want to say that. Yeah. Why dominant? Why you say dominant? Okay, all right. Now, simplification. Yeah. Another step, simplification from dominant term to growth function. N squared is the growth function, right? Yeah. So we define growth function of this algorithm, selection sort algorithm is N squared. N squared. Okay? Yeah. So here you can see we only keep the most important part. For relatively less important numbers, we can ignore. Okay? To make our growth function as simple as possible. Because later, yeah, here you may ask me why we use this growth function concept. Why we use this growth function concept? Here, simple answer is this. When we compare two different algorithms, we only need to compare their corresponding growth functions. Okay? Yeah. That's enough. We only compare their growth functions. Which algorithm has larger growth function, then this algorithm will be slower, right? Because larger, you need to use more basic operations. It will be slower than the algorithm with fewer number of basic operations. That's the reason that we need to use this concept, growth function concept. Okay, all right.